He opens the utility closet door and he sees the CO who's supposed to be at the center tower, who's supposed to be guarding us at this point, in the utility closet with another inmate performing ratio. Straight up. You know everybody, you know my whole family.
The whole team.
God.
100.
100.
Double salute. Wildlife 100.
Wildlife 100.
I've been in the trap every day, I don't get much sleep.
Wildlife 100.
Something so real, so real, you can feel it in your knees. I need something like you, do you need someone like me?
What's moving, everybody? Hey, man, you already know what's going on, dog. I'm back again with another crazy story. This time I got the day my best friend sent me to jail for the unthinkable part 15, man. A lot of y'all been waiting on this one because we finna dive deeper into the whole CO situation with my cellmate and all that like that. But for those of y'all who haven't been watching, or for those of y'all who need a little catch up, basically part 14 ended where I was looking at the news after coming out on rotation because my cellmate had just spoke to the lieutenant of the jail. He just spoke to the lieutenant of the jail. We supposed to all been on lockdown. He ended up letting our entire row off of lockdown. Our bottom row, he let us off lockdown because the lieutenant and my cellmate ended up having a conversation that he ended up explaining to me later. Now, a lot of y'all, if y'all been watching, then y'all know we had a CO in the pod who came in and he was very friendly. He seemed to be very friendly and he seemed to be kind of sweet. You know what I'm saying? On everything, he seemed to be a little sweet, you feel me? But he came in and he used to give folks extra stuff. You know, he used to let folks stay out a little longer. You know, not to say that that's necessarily sweet because, you know, some of that stuff was just nice as far as being in jail. Like a CO that allows you to stay on the phone a little extra or allows you to stay out on rotation a little longer than you supposed to or things like that. That was cool. But come to find out, he had his reasons as to why he was allowing certain things to happen. So my cellmate ended up talking to the lieutenant one day. The lieutenant ended up pulling him out of his cell, and when he came back into the cell, he told me basically the CO that was all nice to everybody, he was just he's under investigation. Now he really kind of kept it kind of cool. You know, he didn't really tell me too much because I don't know if he didn't tell me too much because he didn't want me to know too much or because he himself didn't know too much. Whatever he told the lieutenant, because he ended up telling on the CO. Remember I told y'all that my cellmate was going outside and being the trustee, and he wasn't even allowed to be the trustee because he had a violent charge. Remember I told y'all, if you have a violent charge in the DeKalb County Jail, you can't be a trustee. But it seems as though for the last month or two, my cellie was going out and being a trustee and coming back with McDonald's. He was coming back with canned sodas and all type of snacks and stuff like that, right? So he ended up telling the lieutenant that, yeah, the CO had some nefarious things going on. I just didn't know to what extent. He ended up letting my bottom row off of lockdown because of whatever my cellie ended up telling him. And we was really rocking after that, like as far as, you know, not me and my cellie, but we was rocking as far as my whole bottom level. Like it was like we was getting special treatment for the rest of that week or something like that. The first day that we were out on lockdown, the top row was still on lockdown. So if y'all remember, I told y'all there was a new blood that came in and he was upstairs. You feel me? They were still trying to catch y'all. You know, remember the last part that I told y'all, they ended up throwing feces and urine on him, man, because he ran and ended up getting locked down. Like he wasn't trying to come on home or get beat up into blood all the way, you know, as far as in the jail. So he just booked. And when he booked, my cellmate got mad at him and chased him around the pod. And he ended up getting back inside of his room, closing the door. They went and got urine and feces and threw it on him. So he's still upstairs, but the top row is locked down, so he ain't got nothing to worry about as far as right now. When I came out on bottom rotation, I'm sitting there watching the news with my little junkie friend, and we see the same CO that used to do rounds around the pod and was letting us get away with certain stuff, and the one that was real nice. His name and his picture is plastered on the news now for being an officer who was giving other inmates commissary in exchange for favors. Like, favors. You know what I'm saying? Like all type of stuff. You feel what I'm saying? So I'm like, whoa, you feel me? I'm seeing this on the news, and at this point, I'm like, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Because my cellie, remember I told y'all, he told me that he caught the CO doing something. And when he caught the CO doing something, he was basically keeping a secret from him, which is why he was getting some type of special treatment. So when we went back into the cell on lockdown, I got to chopping it up with my cellie like, hey, bro, you seen Buddy on the news? Like, I'm basically asking him without asking him. You feel me? So he like, yeah, and he gave me the rundown. So what my cellie told me was he ended up walking outside the pod one day, which I don't know how he got outside the pod after rotation. When everybody is up for rotation, it's like 11, 12, maybe 10 at night at the latest, right? And remember, I told y'all, you can't necessarily walk outside of the pod unless you're a trustee. If you have a violent charge, then you can't necessarily be trustee. So I don't know how he was able to get outside of the pod at 10, 11 at night in the first place. You feel me? I don't know how that happened, but I never asked the question either, so I just let it be. In jail sometime, bro, you just gotta mind your business, fool. And I did that often. You know what I mean? Straight up. If you've been watching this series, then I didn't ask too many questions in jail. I just let everything come to me. And, took it for what it was. So he's explaining to me like, yeah, I got out one day and I walk into as I'm cleaning, he said as he's cleaning the outside of the pods, like by the center tower, he walks into the utility closet. Now, as he's cleaning outside of the pods, it's a center tower, and it's a CO in that center tower always. If he's not in that center tower, then he's somewhere going to go get his lunch real quick, or in another pod handling some type of business or something like that. And the CO just so happened to not be in the center tower. So when my cellmate walks inside the utility closet to go get the broom or the mop or whatever he was about to use to clean up the outside of the pod, he walks in and he sees this. He opens the utility closet door and he sees the CO who's supposed to be at the center tower, who's supposed to be guarding us at this point, in the utility closet with another inmate performing ratio. Straight up. And it just so happened to be another blood, bro. Another high-ranking blood in another pod, bro. Straight up. So listen, my celly, and he telling me all this because at this point it's like he could pretty much tell I was questioning them, because it just got plastered on the news, and I'm pretty much the only one that's knowing that he was going out and coming back with certain things. He didn't really just, put it out there to other people in the pod, and I understand why. You know what I'm saying? So he telling me like, yeah, I caught him. And when he caught him, the CO was basically telling him like, listen, if you don't tell on me, I make sure you trusty all the time. I make sure you come out on every rotation that I'm here, because they rotate COs all the time. It's just like a job. You feel me? Some days he might work Mondays, some days he might work Tuesdays. They shift them in different pods and stuff like that. He might work the whole week, but he might do 7 Northwest 2 days out that week. You get what I'm saying? So he like, every day that I'm on 7 Northwest, I make sure that you come out, and I make sure that you got, something for your troubles, whether it be some type of commissary, whether it be whatever, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You feel me? It makes sense a little bit. I wasn't trying to ask you many questions. So he breaking it down some more, and he just like, yeah, when the lieutenant came and he asked me, did he see the CO doing certain things? He just told him straight up, yes, he did. You feel me? He just flat out just snitched on the CO and told him that, yeah, he caught him doing certain things with certain inmates. And the crazy part is, those inmates that ended up getting that end up getting special favors besides my cellmate, they ended up getting in trouble also. They got either shipped to a new dorm or they got on lockdown or something like that, which was crazy because it's like, come on, bro, you wave candy in front of a baby, they gonna take it. You know what I'm saying? You talking about some of these inmates in here been in here for years, ain't seen a Coke or ain't seen a real piece of Snickers or something in I don't know how long. You feel what I'm saying? You got folks in here that's gonna switch up. I'm talking about they gonna turn for you. You feel me? Cause they been locked down for so long. Like jail really teach you how to be an animal, bro. And I can't necessarily understand it switching your sexuality. You feel me? But for some of those folk that's in there, you can see it in them. You know, so I could see some of the folks that did change up and that did go gay in the pod or whatever. I could see them doing that. You feel me? Like it ain't hard to tell a weak mind. The whole time I'm wondering if he gonna tell me what he was doing. You know what I'm saying? If he was doing something like that, you feel me? But he ain't never come out and say, you know, he got caught up in that whole situation. You know, his whole thing was he just caught them and he was just running it up like that. You feel me? And honestly, y'all, I didn't ask too many more questions. I couldn't really. It was I just had to take it. You feel me? Like I just had to take it. But for the rest of the time being, I did look at Shawty kind of crazy. I ain't even gonna lie to you. You feel me? Because it's like certain things didn't add up. Like I told y'all, like how was you out there initially when you're never allowed to be a trustee in the first place? Like how did you even get out there to even catch this man? You feel me? Like it just wasn't right. You know, so, you know, I just let that be what it was. But he ended up telling on the CEO, and the lieutenant gave us free range in the jail for at least that next week. Now, fast forward, and that's the CEO story. You know what I'm saying? I actually got a more in-depth story about it. I give his name out and all that. You know, if y'all want to, I'm going to leave that video in the comments if y'all want to go check that out. You feel me? It's a light-skinned guy. I don't know how much time he ended up getting, but they ended up putting him in DeKalb County Jail, which was heinous. You feel me? Which was kind of crazy. You know what I'm saying? Fast forward, right? The next 2 days, the top row ended up getting off of lockdown. You know? So when the top row ended up getting off of lockdown, we noticed that the new blood was gone. The new blood wasn't upstairs or anything like that. Come to find out, he ended up kiting out while everybody was asleep. You know, I guess he pushed the button. And I don't know when he did, because usually I stay up all night rapping and stuff like that to the entire pod. You feel me? I go up under my flap, and I stay up to about 1, 2, 3 in the morning. I don't know. We ain't have no clocks in there, though, at the same time. So I don't know what time it was, for real. But we just used to rock out every night, you know, and I used to beat on the wall and rap to everybody. So he ended up kiting out. I guess he told the CEO that he feared for his life, and they came and got him. You feel me? So he dodged that bullet as far as dealing with the Bloods or as far as having to get beat up by the Bloods or anything like that. With him being gone, now it's like the pod kind of came back to a cool state. It was real zen in the pod at that point. Like it didn't nobody have no issues with nobody. You know, it wasn't no problems for real for the most part. Like, and then anybody who ever been to jail before, you know that your pod gets flipped ever so often. Flip meaning new people, old people go out and new people come in. You know, like old people might done caught their time, might done move to a different pod or anything like that, and then new people come in. The new people being the new people that done got locked up or people that done went from this pod to that pod or whatever like that. So for the first time in months, this seemed like it was just no issues in the pod. You know, some of the Bloods left. A couple more older guys came in. It was just cool. You know, but the pod next to us just so happened to have a whole bunch of action. And not Chop Pod. Chop Pod was to the right of us. Then the other pod was to the left of us. Now, it was a new blood that came in the other pod. Now, he just so happened to be a high-ranking blood also inside of the jail. I forgot his name, but if I said, y'all might know him if y'all from the city. I don't remember his name though. He ended up coming in and he ended up chopping it up with my silly at the door. Remember I told y'all that it's a door where me and Chop used to talk through, and it's a whole nother door on the other side where that's connected to that pod also. So you got 2 doors that's connected to 2 different pods. You feel me? The closest pods that are connected to our pod, you can talk to other pod members from the door. So while I'm over there talking to Chop, my celly was over to the left talking to his other blood at that door, right? So one day, the other blood on the left side of the pod, he ended up sending a kite to my celly, right? And the kite was basically like he got something for him, right? So my celly like, all right, bet, you know, I ain't really read the note. He was excited about it. So he was telling me like, yeah, Lil J, I got a surprise for you, you know, later on and all that stuff like that. So I'm like, all right, bet. You know, I'm still a little weary. I'm like, a surprise, you feel me? I don't too much want no surprise from you, you feel me? I don't know what you been had going on with the CEO, you feel me? But I ain't really tripped though, cause at the end of the day, my celly, he didn't give me a vibe like he was gay. But sometimes, you know, you just never know. You feel me? You just never know in jail. You know what I'm saying? And some questionable things did happen a little further down the line, but we gonna get to that too on everything straight up. I might talk about that part 16. So the nurse ends up coming around, and when the nurse ends up coming around, one of the bloods ended up getting out of his cell and his pod. So when he came out on the pod, like I guess he didn't have a violent charge. So he's mopping the floor or he's sweeping or something like that. I don't know what he ended up getting out for. So when he ended up getting out, the nurse came around. As the nurse is leaving, he ended up putting a package in the flap. Remember I told y'all the people that get medicine every day, they line up at this flap, you know, in the front of the pod. They open it up, and that's where the nurse gives out all of her medicine. So this guy ends up, I don't know how they worked it. You know, I guess one of the other bloods had to get medicine or whatever, so he hung out in front of the flap, and the other blood that was in the other pod, he ended up putting the package through the flap. So when he put a package through the flap, that blood that was in my pod got it, and he went and brought it to my cellmate. So when my cellmate got it, we was on lockdown. So as we on lockdown, he opening the package and he's showing me like, look, Lil J. So I'm looking at him open it, and when he opened it up, it's a whole cell phone, bro. Now if y'all know, bro, if y'all know the Cobb County Jail, y'all know, fool, ain't no cell phones coming in or out of the Cobb County Jail, bro. Like, I don't know how this man had to have put this cell phone in his rectum, fool, in the back end, cause it wasn't nothing but a little cell phone. You know, it was like a little track phone or something like that. But he had, I don't know how, no other way that he got this cell phone in the jail, bro, because it's no way in the Cobb County Jail. Remember I told y'all at the beginning of this series, when you come to the Cobb County Jail, bro, you gotta squat and cough. You feel me? So you butt naked, fool. They get you butt naked before you go upstairs. You bend all the way down and cough, so they make sure it's nothing inside of your body. They make sure it's nothing in between your crack. It's nothing in your armpits. It's nothing nowhere where you can hide it. You know? So I don't know how he got this cell phone in there. He like, hey, yeah, we gonna make some phone calls tonight, Lil J. We gonna call some hoes. We gonna do this. We gonna do that. And you know, I'm still on the fence. You feel me? Cause I'm like, nah, I'm straight, fool. I ain't really got nobody to call. You know, it would have been dope calling my mama or whatever chick I was dealing with at the time. But at the same time, it was like, nah, I don't want no favors from nobody in here, especially after the whole CO incident. I just don't want no favors. You know what I mean? I don't know what nobody on. At this point, my back is up against the wall. Don't get me wrong. I rock with my celly because we live together for the most part, you know? So I got to rock with my celly. But at the same time, it's like, I just don't know what nobody got going on, you know? So I'm like, nah, I'm straight. You know, I ain't tripping on no phone call. You know, I'm just kind of letting him down easy. So, and he ain't tripping because at the end of the day, when you get a cell phone in jail, I don't know how it is in prison, but in the county, it's no wall outlets, you know? So the way you have to charge the phone is you have to have a charger, but you have to connect that. And I don't know how they got the charger in the jail either, bro. I don't know how they did this, fool. But you gotta have a charger, but you you hook you cut the end piece off that goes into the wall, and you wire it to the light. Remember I told y'all we used to put honey buns on top of the light to keep them warm, because everybody had this long light inside of they cell, and we could take the little plastic piece off of the light, off of the long light. We could take the whole plastic piece off, and we could wire the charger to the light on some type of way, plug it up to the phone and charge the phone, but it, for some reason, it used to charge slow. It was just so much to it. If the CO come in, you don't want them to catch you with the thing off the light, because if you get caught with a cell phone or anything outside of this jail, like they don't sell or anything like that, it's counted as contraband, and you can really get more time on your sentence from that. So I didn't really want to be involved, but he stayed up all night, basically calling his baby mama, calling other girls. It got pictures, so he ended up getting pictures on his phone and stuff like that. I didn't want to see the pictures. I didn't want to even seem like I was relating to the man in that type of way, as far as explicit pictures, because that whole thing happened with the CO. You know what I'm saying? It traumatized me, bro. I ain't want to relate in a lot of different ways after that. You get what I'm saying? But I sure wasn't finna be in there looking at pictures, both of us aroused, and then what? You know what I'm saying? Straight up, I don't want to deal with none of that. So I kind of minded my business when it came to the cell phone. But he ended up having a cell phone for a couple days, fool. Like he was kicking it. Sometimes he didn't even leave the cell, because he was up there. He was in the cell kicking it, bro. Hand behind his head, feet kicked up, talking to girls or talking to his baby mama, or really getting that outside feel inside the cell. And that was dope. I ain't gonna lie to you. I did want to talk on that cell phone sometimes, or at least hit my mama and let her know, like, I'm good or whatever like that. But that's why we kept money on the phone. So I just kept it gangster. You know what I'm saying? So look, fast forward, bro. The black team hit, bro. We out on rotation, and I'm out on rotation because like I told y'all, my celly, he was staying inside. We out on rotation, and the black team hit. Now, those of y'all who might be new here, the black team is basically a team full of, they like SWAT, bro. But it's made up of COs inside of the jail who, I don't know if they want to be SWAT members, they inspired to be that, or if this just a division inside of the jail that are just being trained to be this way. Basically, they come in and they shake down the entire pod, upstairs and downstairs. Now, I don't know exactly why they shook down the pod this time, because after the lieutenant left and he started giving us a lot of like privileges, we thought we was smooth sailing. Then on top of that, ain't been no fights in the pod for the last week. It ain't been no issues, period. At least in our pod, So I don't know why the black team ended up hitting us that day. I'm guessing the lieutenant done backdoored us. You feel me? Like, as far as making us feel like it was okay, and then sweeping in to see if he can catch any drugs, any contraband, anything, because that's what the black team was for. They sweep in and they practice being the black team, like SWAT or whatever the case. So they sweep in, and like I told y'all, every time the black team come in, bro, it's a surprise, right? Nobody knows the black team is about to come until that door swing open. So the door swing open, and the first black team member, pow, 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 he just started letting off shots. Rubber gun, a rubber pellet gun. So he like, everybody get down. So everybody get down. Now, mind you, my celly is in the cell on the phone, bro, at this time, So, of course, he can't get caught with this phone, or else he's going to get extra time or lockdown or something like that. Ain't no telling what might happen if he get caught with this phone. So everybody knew my celly had the cell phone. Everybody, it was a couple other bloods in there. On top of the fact that the new blood that came, he had a lot of information on a lot of the COs, bro, which was kind of crazy to me also, right? So it used to be this sergeant. That came in with the black team often. And I think his name was Sergeant Gotti or something like that. If you've been to DeKalb County Jail, then you know what I'm talking about. Sergeant Gotti was like, he was a problem, fool. anytime he came to your cell, bro, you wasn't getting no special treatment. You was actually gonna get the worst. They was gonna flip your room in 2-3 different ways. You know, they was gonna flip your bed. All your commissary was gonna be outside. Everything was gonna be messed up. If you didn't have your bed made a certain way, you was getting locked down. It was he just used to be a trip, right? Today he just so happened to be leading the black team, and the black team come in there, they let off the shots. Then they telling everybody to get on the wall. We out for rotation, the bottom row. So we got on the wall. We had to get on the wall. Well, first we had to get down, and then when he told us to get up and get on the wall, that's when we got on the wall. When we get on the wall, we cannot face the black team members, right? It's like we can't look at them or anything like that. They come with these black masks on. It's like SWAT, for real, for real. So we get on the wall, and as we're on the wall, Gotti walks in. Gotti walks in right after the SWAT team members. So when he walks in, the first thing one of the inmates starts to do is yell out this address, bro. Right? One of the blood inmates starts yelling out an address. So Sergeant Gotti, I guess it was familiar to him or something. So Sergeant Gotti said, "What you say?" He went to the inmate, and I guess he tried to scare him, right? So when that inmate didn't say nothing, another inmate on the other side of the room started yelling the same address. So the sergeant went to him and said, "What you say? Repeat it. Be a man and repeat your words." You feel me? This was Sergeant. He trying to scare these boys into basically saying what they saying to him, right? So as he's saying that, somebody else in the top pod on the upper level, because they were still on lockdown. We was out on rotation. The top pod just so happened to be on lockdown, but they popped their doors, you know, because when the black team comes in, they checking everything, but they starting with whoever was out on rotation. So somebody at the top row yelled out the same address. When a guy in the top row yelled the address, he said some female's name. Sergeant Gotti looked around the pod. A couple guys was laughing, and he said, "All right, fellas, it's nothing to see here." He did one of these, and he wrapped up the entire search, bro. He got the black team to leave before they even search any of the rooms. Now remember, I told y'all my celly was in there with a cell phone. If the black team would have went in there, it was no way that he would have been able to hide that cell phone. These cells is too small, and like I told you, when the black team come in there, they flipping everything. They searching everything. It's nothing that they not. It's nothing that's going unturned when they come in. So they ended up. Gotti said it's time to go, and they left. Bro, we finished our rotation. I noticed everybody, when they left, everybody was whispering around and stuff like that. They didn't even finish the flow, bro. They were supposed to, when the black team come, they're supposed to hit a couple dorms. Or, I don't know if they supposed to, or if they just get a memo on certain dorms to hit. But after they left our dorm, they just left. They wasn't on the flow no more. They went to an entirely different flow. You know, they might have went home for the day. I don't know. You know, so when our rotation ended, I ended up going into my cell, and I'm talking to my cellie. I'm like, "Bro, that was weird, bro. You know, like, what happened?" You feel me? Come to find out, the new blood that came in the other pod just so happened to be dealing or had dealings with Sergeant Gotti's wife, bro. Yes, bro. He had dealings. Apparently, he used to take her up through there. You know what I'm saying? And recently, I'm guessing. So he gave this information to my cellie. My cellie gave it to the other bloods in the pod, and they just shouted address and shouted name. You feel me? Now, for those of y'all who don't understand why that's important, the black team members, first of all, they wear masks because they don't want you to know who they are. They don't want you to know who they are, because if you do know who they are, then you can plan or plot some type of revenge, whether it be in the jail or outside the jail. You know, because these people still have lives outside of the jail. And the black team, when they come in, they do a lot of heinous stuff to a lot of the inmates, bro. Like, and even flipping they cells, like, all of that, it just be unnecessary. So they hide their faces. Now, the sergeant, him being one of the most ruthless sergeants that was in the jail, this was bad business for him. People knowing, not only knowing his address, but knowing who his wife was messed up for him, because it's like, all right, any one of these guys, when they get out of jail, or even if they know somebody on the outside, can send somebody to his house. You know, not only send somebody to his house, but send somebody at his wife, or whatever the case. You feel me? So at this point, these inmates, these bloods was playing a dirty game, fool, and they kind of had it wrapped up, bro. You know? So Sergeant Gotti didn't want no issues, fool. Like, he just left on out, you know? And honestly, bro, the rest of the time that I was there, we didn't get hit by the black team at all. You feel me? Because just think about it. If you were an officer that did a lot of things to an inmate, bro, and the inmate yells out your address and basically tells you where your family lay their head at, bro, you're not going to want no issue with that inmate, or no inmates, period. Because at this point, this can get around the whole entire jail, which I think it ended up doing. You know, I believe Sergeant Gotti had ended up switching jails and some more stuff. Like, it just got that bad. But just think about it. If an inmate knows your information and you've been cruel to him, then it's like, bro, your family's not safe, bro. You know, I wouldn't have dug that either. My celly, he got over. You know, basically he got over. So he rolled with the cell phone for a couple more days. He ended up giving the cell phone back to the guy that was in the pod next to us, right? So everything was in, bro. Wasn't no issues, fool. Wasn't no issues in the pod. The pod had been flipped to a certain point where, you know, like I told y'all, it was no problems at all. Like, it's more old people in here than young guys. So we was just really just cruising. You feel me? Like, it just felt good in the pod. It didn't feel good because we was in jail, you know. But for the most part, it didn't feel any type of dangerous. Like, when you got more young guys in the pod than old guys, then it can feel kind of dangerous, because it is dangerous. You feel me? You got young boys in there that's ready to crash out about anything, and don't let them be gang members. So we kicking it. Fast forward, bro. One of the old guys I was locked up with, he just so happened, and I think I mentioned this earlier in one of the parts, but he ended up being just one of the coolest old guys in the pod, right? But this was his third unaliving case. You know, this was the third time that he basically unalived somebody. And he just used to be in there praying for everybody, because he got off. The first 2 times he got off. Or it might have been 4 times and this was his 4th. But every other time that he got locked up for unaliving somebody, he got off. And he was like 60-something years old, had gray hairs, light skin, you know, kind of hunchback. You know, he was just an older guy. Looked like he could have been somebody's grandpa. You feel me? But he wasn't just that old, but he was old looking. So he just used to spread all this good energy and stuff like that. And it was time for him to go to court. Now, he ended up going to court, and everybody was asking him, you know, what judge he ended up having and stuff like that. He ended up having a judge. I can't remember the judge's name, but the judge ended up being like one of the worst judges in the jail, bro. You feel me? Like, nobody wanted to have this judge, but he just so happened to get this judge on this 3rd or 4th unaliving case. And to be honest with you, that could have been a setup from the state, you know, because it's like, we can't keep letting this guy go. So he ends up going to court, and he came back, bro. Went in his cell. He didn't want to talk to nobody, bro. Mind y'all, when you go to court in jail, fool, they come get you early in the morning, like 5, 6 in the morning, bro. You don't get back until like 5, 6 p.m. in the afternoon, bro. So it's a long ride. They take you down. So he ends up coming back. We thinking he might just be drained or something like that. You feel me? Because sometimes they don't decide your fate, you know, the first time you go to court. Sometimes people go to trial. Sometimes it's whatever the case, you know. But he comes back in the pod. He don't want to talk to nobody. We ended up talking to him later that day, bro. The judge gave him 100 years and 1 hour, bro. Straight up. This judge wanted to make sure that he wasn't going to see the light of day ever again. And if he lived for 100 more years after being 60 years old, he still had 1 hour to go, fool. On everything, bro. Treacherous. That was a sad day. Don't get me wrong. And I'm at the door. I'm telling Chop what happened and stuff like that. You know, he just so happened to have went to court with the guy. before, a lot of y'all may or may not know this, but after you catch your time, it's a certain amount of time that you spend in the pod before they ship you up to the 8th floor. It was dwindling down time. Chop had already called his time. So it was dwindling down time as far as when he was supposed to go to the 8th floor. I think we might have had a couple days, a week or something left. So at this point, we counting down to the time that Chop has to go upstairs to the 8th floor and get shipped off to prison. You feel me? And I'm going to try to give y'all that story with y'all with me. If not, then I'm going to just give y'all the story myself, you know what I mean? Because Chop to be busy and stuff like that, you know? But that's a crazy story too, bro, because it was like, man, it happened abruptly, you feel me? And before he left, he made a mark, you know what I'm saying? But listen, man, y'all make sure y'all drop part 16 in the comments, and I'm going to give y'all that, you feel me? But, man, make sure y'all like, share, subscribe, and until next time, man, 100.